Have you ever found yourself sitting across from someone new, enjoying a cup of coffee and a good conversation, only to suddenly feel a pang of guilt, as though you're betraying the memory of your late spouse? Maybe you've even caught yourself thinking, is it too soon? What would the kids say? Or, how could I ever love someone else? If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. So many widows and widowers over 70 tell me they feel torn between honoring the past and embracing the possibility of new love. And while dating later in life can be joyful, even thrilling, there are emotional risks we don't talk about enough, hidden challenges that can catch you off guard if you're not prepared. Today, we're going to have an honest conversation about 6 of those risks, not to scare you, but to empower you. Because when you know what to watch for, you can protect your heart, make decisions that feel right for you, and step into this new chapter with confidence. Let's start by unpacking the first 3 emotional risks every widow needs to know. Risk 1, the weight of guilt and loyalty. Picture this. You're at a community dance, and a kind gentleman asks you to join him for a waltz. As you laugh and sway to the music, a wave of guilt crashes over you. How can I enjoy this, you think? My late husband and I used to dance like this. That guilt, it's one of the heaviest burdens widows carry when considering dating again. It's as though finding happiness with someone new feels like erasing the love you once had. But here's the truth. Love isn't a pie. Giving a slice to someone new doesn't mean there's less left for the person you lost. Your heart has room for both grief and new joy. The key is to give yourself permission. Permission to laugh again. Permission to miss your spouse and appreciate a new connection. One widow I spoke to, Martha, told me she started writing letters to her late husband whenever guilt crept in. She'd say, "John, I'll always love you, but I think you'd want me to enjoy whatever time I have left." That simple ritual helped her honor the past while making space for the present. Risk 2, the fear of judgment. Now, even if you start to make peace with guilt, there's another hurdle that often comes up: worrying about what others might think. Your adult children, your friends, even neighbors at the grocery store. It's easy to imagine their whispers. "She's moving on too fast," or "He's replacing his wife." But let me ask you this: whose life is it? You've spent decades caring for others, putting family first. This time, it's okay to prioritize your happiness. That doesn't mean ignoring loved ones' concerns. It means having gentle, honest conversations. Take Irene, for example. When she started dating a widower from her book club, her daughter worried she was being rushed into a relationship. So Irene sat her down and said, "Honey, I'm not trying to replace your dad, but I'm lonely, and George makes me feel seen. Can we take this one step at a time, together?" By inviting her daughter into the conversation, Irene eased fears and built understanding. Remember, you don't need anyone's approval, but you do deserve their respect. Set boundaries kindly, and trust that those who truly love you will want your happiness. Risk 3, comparing apples to oranges. Here's a trap we all fall into, whether we're 25 or 75, comparing new partners to old ones. Maybe you catch yourself thinking, "Bill never would have forgotten my birthday," or "Margaret was a much better cook." But here's the thing. Comparisons steal the joy of discovering someone new. Your late spouse was unique, and so is the person you're getting to know now. They're not better or worse, just different. Try this. Focus on what is, not what was. If your new friend tells stories that make you smile or shares a hobby you've never tried, lean into that novelty. Tom, a widower in his 80s, told me he felt guilty for appreciating his girlfriend's love of jazz. His wife had hated it. But then he realized, Enjoying jazz didn't diminish the classical concerts he'd shared with his wife. It just added a new color to his life. These first three risks, guilt, judgment, and comparison, are like shadows that follow many widows into the dating world. But here's the good news. Shadows lose their power when you shine a light on them. By acknowledging these feelings, you've already taken the first step toward navigating them. But there are still more emotional risks that can catch you by surprise. Understanding them is key to safeguarding your heart without closing it off. Because you deserve companionship, joy, and peace in this chapter of your life. And with the right tools, you can have all three. You know, even when we think we've prepared ourselves for the emotional twists and turns of dating after loss, life has a way of surprising us. Maybe you've started dipping your toes into the dating pool, only to feel like you're riding a roller coaster. 1 minute hopeful, the next overwhelmed. That's completely normal. So let's continue our conversation by unpacking 2 more emotional risks that often fly under the radar, until they don't. Risk 4, the rush to fill the void. Imagine this. You've been alone for a few years, and the silence in your house feels louder than ever. Then you meet someone kind, charming, and available. Suddenly, you're texting every day, making weekend plans, but here's the catch. Loneliness can sometimes cloud our judgment. It's easy to confuse the relief of companionship with genuine compatibility. I've seen so many widows jump into relationships too quickly, only to realize later they've ignored red flags, like mismatched values or a partner who doesn't respect their boundaries. Take Helen, for instance. After her husband passed, she met a man at a grief support group who seemed perfect, attentive, generous, and equally lonely. They moved in together within 6 months, but soon Helen realized they had little in common beyond their shared loss. It felt like we were just 2 scared people playing house, she told me. We cared for each other, but we weren't truly connected. So how do you avoid this pitfall? Slow down. Let the relationship unfold like a good book. Savor each chapter instead of skipping to the ending. Build a foundation of friendship first. Ask yourself, do I enjoy this person's company when we're not talking about our losses? Give yourself time to see them as a whole person, not just a remedy for loneliness. Risk 5, unresolved grief sneaking back. And now, let's talk about something that catches many widows off guard. Grief doesn't follow a timeline. You might think you've processed your loss, only to have it resurface during a date. Maybe a song comes on the radio, your song, and suddenly you're fighting tears at the dinner table. Or your new partner mentions a vacation spot you'd once planned to visit with your late spouse, and your heart feels like it's splitting in 2 all over again. This doesn't mean you're not ready to date. It means grief is a journey with no expiration date. The key is to acknowledge these moments instead of burying them. Consider Frank, a widower who started dating a lovely woman named Anita. One evening, while cooking dinner together, Anita accidentally used a phrase his late wife used to say, "Easy as pie." Frank froze. He excused himself to the bathroom, sat on the edge of the tub, and cried for 10 minutes. When he came back, he said, "Anita, I need to tell you why that hit me so hard." By sharing his grief, he didn't push her away. He let her in. And Anita? She thanked him for trusting her with that piece of his heart. If this happens to you, don't panic. Take a breath. You can say something simple like, "I'm having a moment. It's not about you. Would you mind if we pause for a bit?" Most people will respect your honesty. And if they don't, that tells you something important about them. These 2 risks, rushing into love or wrestling with resurfacing grief, aren't signs you're doing something wrong. They're proof you're human. And here's what I want you to remember. Every step you take, even the wobbly ones, is a brave choice to keep living fully. But there's still one more emotional risk, one that's often the hardest to see coming. Understanding it will help you protect your peace while staying open to joy. Because you've already weathered so much. And you're still here, still growing, still capable of a beautiful new beginning. We've walked through some tender territory together, haven't we? Guilt, judgment, comparison, the pull of loneliness, and grief's unexpected comebacks. All these emotional risks are part of the delicate dance of opening your heart again. But there's one last risk we need to talk about, one that's especially insidious because it often disguises itself as something noble. Let's unpack it together. Picture this. You meet someone who checks all the boxes, kind, thoughtful, shares your values. But over time, you start to notice little shifts. You stop going to your weekly painting class because they prefer quiet evenings at home. You bite your tongue when they dismiss your opinion on politics, telling yourself, it's not worth the argument. Slowly, the things that make you you begin to fade into the background. This risk isn't about compromise, it's about erasure. After years of partnership, many widows are so used to prioritizing others that they forget how to protect their own needs. But here's the truth. A healthy relationship shouldn't require you to shrink. Love later in life isn't about finding someone to complete you. It's about finding someone who celebrates the whole, vibrant person you already are. Take Gloria, for example. She fell for a man who adored her wit and independence until he started criticizing her silly habit of collecting vintage teacups. At first, she hid her collection, not wanting to rock the boat. But one day, she realized, this is who I am. If he can't love that, he can't love me. When she gently stood her ground, something surprising happened. He apologized, admitting his own fear of being too quirky. Their relationship grew stronger because she refused to disappear. So, how do you guard against losing yourself? Check in regularly. Ask, am I still doing the things that light me up? Do I feel free to be honest? If the answer is no, it's time to speak up. Not with anger, but with clarity. As my grandmother used to say, don't trade your sparkle for someone else's comfort. Let's take a moment to honor how far you've come. You've navigated loss. You've dared to hope again. And now, you're learning to love, not just someone else, but yourself, with wisdom and intention. That's extraordinary. If you take nothing else from our time together, remember this. Dating after 70 isn't about replacing what you had. It's about expanding your life, adding new stories to the rich tapestry you've already woven. Every risk we've discussed, they're not roadblocks, they're signposts, guiding you toward relationships that honor your past, cherish your present, and respect your future. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you experienced any of these emotional risks? How did you navigate them? Share your story in the comments below. Your wisdom might be the lifeline another widow needs today. And if this conversation resonated with you, consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. We're here to walk alongside you as you explore life's next chapters, with practical advice, heartfelt stories, and a community that understands. However your story unfolds from here, promise me one thing. You'll never let fear write the ending. You've earned the right to take up space, to laugh loudly, to love deeply, and to do it all on your own terms. After all, age isn't a limit. It's a badge of courage. And you, my friend, are brimming with it. Here's to your next adventure. May it be filled with grace, discovery, and the quiet joy of knowing exactly who you are.